We're hammering out chapter 3, the Dream Team Paradox, as we take deeper and deeper dives on really separating this skill set versus attribute set concept. And again, a lot of great stories in here, a lot of great nuggets that we can pull out. And as always, I want to hear from you guys first. So get those cameras on, get those conversations going, and let's hear what you have.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all look good today. Just wanted to put that out there first. Hey, wanted to just say something. Hey, this was really interesting because how we think about people that are successful is we say they have a skill set for this particular thing. I was floored by how Julie was able to put together this team that totally fell apart, and they were the best of the best of the best of the best. And so my takeaway of this was a system is never the sum of its parts. It's the product of the interaction of individual players, essentially. And I'm looking at you guys and I'm thinking, that's kind of what we have here. We're individuals who are pretty good at what we do in general, but within that context, we probably operate interpersonally better than most teams and companies that I've worked for that have paid people really big money. I can call Don, I can call Russ, I can call different people and get different things at different times, and people can call me. And that system, because that's what it is, that system that we have created works within the context of what this book is saying. It's just very interesting. That's my takeaway.
Awesome. Well, let's just kind of scratch the surface a little. The things that you may be discovering in some of these attributes. Maybe it's you can reach out because we are really dealing, Don and I and Ryan and others that are stepping into leadership role, having really a high level of selflessness and a giving heart, one of the attributes, or maybe you're comfortable reaching out because there's empathy there and not judgment. Another one of the leadership attitudes. Maybe, just maybe for some of you, my personal, Ryan, you're putting me to shame on this one. Accountability. Another one of the leadership attributes as we dive in. So it's having the right people in the right seat on the bus. And as you dive into these guys, as you look for your growth journey, maybe, and I'm optimistic, many of you have a growth journey that includes leadership. Well, there's actually going to be attributes that you get to go and fine tune. I mean, how many of you have ever done anything with Landmark, like the Landmark Forum, something that got recommended me from day one in my coaching journey by Ron Patulski? That literally was all about attributes. That was the work that was done in that space. A lot of coaches training is really not training on the skill of the conversation. It's more of what some people have called soft skills, which I think lean more and more into these attributes that we're learning. So great aha, client. Ryan, I see your mic's hot. What do you got, brother?
Yeah, I was there's a couple points. The first thing I really like what Daryl put in the chat of, like, when you look at sports teams, or even military or whatever it is, it's not the skills. You could have the highest skilled position players on a field or on a court or whatever it is. It's the intangibles, it's the attributes, it's the it factor. That's what, the coachability, the selflessness, all of those things is what's putting this thing together. And on page 36, it's the Army, and this is probably the first thing the Army's ever said that makes sense. So sorry, no, I'm former military, so I get to talk shit. Sorry, guys. I'm Air Force. It says train for certainty, educate for uncertainty. And I thought that was really powerful, because what that means is, like, basically when the stuff hits the fan, how are you going to react? Are you going to react with poise? Are you going to react with, are you going to react with, anger and frustration? Or are you going to be like, all right, is everything going to still be copacetic, and we're going to be able to, find the common goal together to achieve what we're still going to achieve? Or are we going to fall apart like the example said?
Well, and I love that line: train for certainty, educate for uncertainty. And training, just a little farther in the paragraph, is about learning and practicing specific skills. So our practice and role play on conversations is training you on conversations. Education is about broadening knowledge, developing beliefs and values, gaining experience. The education is what adjusts the attributes. So it's going to take longer as you look to plus some of these. Just
So
be aware.
client, in the question that you posed in the chat, client, the one thing I can tell you is this: is you practice like you play. So, and you have to practice with pressure on you to be able to handle the pressure. That's what when I was a college volleyball coach, that's the closer to the gameplay that you got, the better results that happen when you actually did it. Same thing in the military. The closer that you got to the actual situation, the more that you were able to actually execute when it was on the line. So if you're doing that in your role play, like if you're role playing a situation, you're not going to say, well, I can't sell because I have this farm and my goat needs braces. That's just not going to be ample enough to be able to handle a situation and go away. It's going to make somebody laugh, but it's trust me, I've done that before to make people laugh and break character. But the thing is, you got to be able to practice as closely as what you're going to hear of an objection as you're moving forward.
Absolutely.
Colorado has different goats than the rest of us then.
Good point. Thank you.
Josh, what else you got since you spoke up? I'm going to lean you into this, brother. And then we're going to go to Jeanette.
Two things. One, Julie's problem was she didn't look at their faults. And too often we look at everybody's strengths or skills. And I kind of would disagree with Ryan on a sense. The skills do matter. You just need to have a good balance and variety of skills, different strengths of skills when you're assembling a team. The other thing that I think makes that difficult for most of us is we tend to be attracted to people that are very similar to us. That attraction is what gravitates you towards somebody. And it's almost more difficult. Well, no, it is more difficult to see somebody's faults than to see their strengths. Their strengths come out, right? You can see it right away, but you don't always get to see their faults. And, this book is doing a really good job of saying, okay, in a worst case scenario, this is what you have to be prepared for. And you don't always think about A, the worst case scenario, B, somebody's faults, and C, not everybody's optimistic, but you look at it when you're assembling a group and you're thinking of the best case scenario in most cases, as opposed to the worst case scenario.
Well, I think there's a huge aha there. Josh is playing undercurrent right now. The strengths we will talk about are usually the skills, and the faults that we talk about are usually the attributes. I can't tell you how many times I've talked about someone who is, up against a barrier they can't break through, and the conversation comes up with my coaches of, are they coachable? I think coachability is an attribute not covered in the book that I've added to my list. And maybe we'll see a different way to talk about that. Or in talking about how agents don't succeed and they don't have the discipline to follow a schedule. The discipline being the attribute. They may have the skill to build the calendar, and they learn the skill of the calendaring process, yet the attribute of following it is where they fall apart. It's a very interesting nugget you put in here, Josh, of this strength, weakness, how we view it. And at least from my world, almost every conversation about strengths that we talk about is the skill set historically, and the weakness is almost always the attribute. Now, of course, we do talk about attributes as strengths as we get more and more into a coaching and leadership role. And you'll see more of that talked about. Jeanette, you were hot. You coming back?
Yes. Just had some noise that was here. I'm appreciating all of this, and this particular book is hitting me right where I need right at the moment. Understanding the differences between skills and attributes has been really, right now my skill level is not being used, but recognizing, just getting back into it, recognizing the attributes of resiliency, the not quitting, and looking at those is a hope builder. Sorry, I can do this. Anyway, some days you don't know what's going to hit you. So the deal with it is, I was up at 4 this morning, and because I was just struggling through, and it's not a depression, it's like this oppression on it. I'm going, no, you don't belong, get out of here. No. And just working through that. And it's like just reading here this morning again, the attributes of resiliency. And every one of these books that we've worked with is still about the attributes. We develop the skills, we work, and we also train into the attributes that we need in our lives. Because, and we have some of us who have, we naturally have the attributes better, and we get to develop the other ones, and being aware of them really is as much strength as anything. And so I'm still good. I am not at some horrible depth. It's just, I know I'm not where I normally am. And it's bothering me because I'm not using the skills. I'm not doing the calls the way I need to. And I'm still giving myself time and grace in that, with everything that's going on. And it's amazing to be able to move forward in this. And this morning, with everything else that we've trained into, it's like, okay, I'm not willing to survive. I can do that when I need to. I want to thrive. Here is a place where understanding, when you understand the attributes versus the skills, you can go back and put the skills into place because you've already trained into them. You just have to get the rest of it working. And the attributes gave me that empowerment of doing that again.
Let's chat about those a moment, because again, these attributes are neither good nor bad, positive or negative. They're just what we have. I envision them as a studio control board and all these levers that slide up and down. And depending on the mix of what you bring in and what you take out, you get a different type of music. You get a different type of person. Jeanette, you are showing in the moment how you have incredible leadership attributes of empathy. And that's one of your strong ones that maybe Coach Russ works on bringing down a little bit, doesn't he? And authenticity. You show up as you are in the moment. And that is huge because so many people hide. They aren't willing to be authentic. So know that these leadership chunks for you are there. And we get to continue to dial in some more to make you a better and better leader. Hobbs, I know you're out there floating them down in the background, grabbing something. I had you on my radars next while waiting for Don to show back up. Who else has something from the content or something from the conversation?
Quick tidbit, even though I've already spoken. This is one of those books that if you have a 14 to 25-year-old, if you have a 14 to 25-year-old, I would get them reading this today. My 16-year-old is reading it right now. I bought two. I'm buying two of every one of the books we do so that I can give one to whoever I'm doing a deal with, whatever it is at the time. And so this one's going to go to my son. I'll order another one. But get this into the hands of our teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be powerful, man. And I love that. Even our post-teenagers just out of college, I got a couple I'm thinking of right now that I'd love to get this in. So, Doug, I see you're hot. Matthew, I saw you come and go, so you'll be next. And Caesar, you're third. Let's go.
Okay, 38, page 38, in the middle of the page. The problem is that true education is hard, whereas myopic focused training is easier. The more that we stay in a predictable environment, however complicated, the more comfortable we as humans are. Then the last sentence of that paragraph, the hard truth is that education takes more time and effort, and it often involves a willingness to dive into uncertainty. And we talk about going into uncomfortable a lot. That's our term for uncertainty. And I think being a realtor is we're a little bit prone to go into the uncertainty anyway. That's just kind of what we do. We walk up to somebody's door we've never met before, and the first thing we want to do is make them our friend. You know, that's just what we do. It's an uncertain thing, but we're willing to negotiate that whole experience. I think that kind of puts a tag on you as an exceptional person to begin with, because you're willing to step into those places where a lot of other people don't want to even think about going. And it causes us to really develop all kinds of different skills. I remember, what was it? I mean, Sunday, I had to go on a showing that I wasn't expecting doing. So I'm walking up the driveway. I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to go talk to. I didn't even have their names down. And I look in the driveway and I knew the guy's name was John, and that was a woman standing there. So when the guy came around the corner of the house, I said, "Oh, okay, you must be John." I said, "I knew that wasn't John." And they both laughed. So it was it was a natural humor thing that just kind of ignited the relationship already. And we look for opportunities like that. So I think this willingness to go into uncertainty is really a big part of what our training needs to be.
And what our education gets to be. How cool is that? So next up I had was Matthew. If you want to get that mic hot again.
All right. I want to go into page 40 and 41. I really appreciate how the author differentiates between peak performance and optimal performance. As someone wanting to perform at an optimal level, we have to realize that our peak performance is the peak, and it really only goes down from there. We see this, say, I just got back from a workout with a personal trainer. At the beginning of the workout, I can operate at a certain level. By the end of the workout, I'm fatigued enough where I wouldn't be able to do the same level as I started. And that's something to keep in mind in how we pace ourselves. But the other thing I thought was really interesting when he was talking about optimal performance, it's really about doing the best in the moment. So at the end of the workout, when I'm more fatigued, I'm still performing at my optimal for what it is. And I just find that kind of sometimes the optimal is doing the best with what we can in that time period. And we kind of train for the peak. Like they're talking about athletes basically work all week just to play the game, or I'm a musician, so I know I have to train as a musician to, say, play a show at the peak level. And say even with real estate, we're practicing 2 o'clock, you guys have the call going on. We're training so we can be optimal and perform at a peak. Or communicating with clients. And I just think that differentiation, I hadn't really seen distinguished like that before. Because I was thinking peak and optimal were almost the same thing. And they're not. And that differentiation, I think, really helps the mindset in terms of, okay, yeah, sometimes we can operate at that elite level, that peak level, but what's the optimal in the moment now? And maybe that's based on preparation, or even like lifting weights. You work out enough, you grow stronger, you can lift more. That's your new peak. So we can get new peaks that are new optimal, and our law of averages kind of kick in too. So I feel it's something we can always work on, and the mindset of our optimal can keep growing at a level, and our peaks can keep growing too, depending on what we want to take on, and what our mind really wraps around, and what our habits do, specifically with those two.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure this piece got hit in, because many, many, many times we are holding ourselves, people in this room are holding themselves to a consistent peak standard. I wish my dear Celeste was in the room right now, because she's like the poster child for that, of always, if I'm not at peak, I'm underperforming and there's something wrong. Peak performance is often conditional. It's environmentally controlled. Optimal performance is about doing the very best you can in the moment. And so I love from 41, sometimes the best is your peak, and sometimes your best is just surviving. And giving yourself that grace to know that you are doing the best you can in the moment. In fact, I want to give you one of my favorite quotes. Everyone is doing the best they can in the moment, and all of my suffering is just my judgment of them. By the way, who are we the biggest judger of? Ourselves. I'm sitting here watching maybe a sweetheart in this room do it to herself. And so she is now suffering because of that judgment. Let's acknowledge that many people, including this author, have put in there that we're going to fluctuate on how well we perform. And as long as we keep plussing 1% a day, as Matthew said, our peaks are going to go up and our optimal averages are going to raise as well. Caesar, you're up.
Thanks, Coach. I wanted to point out the dream team concept, how I forget what position she was in, but she was looking for the best marketer and the best salesperson, and everything was running well until the client wanted to make some changes, and then that dynamic wasn't. She noticed that that's not the best. She needed those attributes, and I wanted to tie that into maybe people that we are currently want on our team, as we want like not necessarily the best people, like won't necessarily fit in the ways, but if we look at the attributes that they bring, if they bring integrity, if they communicate well, if they have a great personality, those are the things that feel the ones that we should be more looking at and targeting, as well as the sales and the numbers things. But I just wanted to point that little piece out about the dream team, and to tie it into sports, for example, like there's role players that not everyone could be the best shooter or like the leading scorer. There has to be like in the Bulls, for example, like Rodman was like the rebounder, and there had to be guys that came in and gave energy, and the same thing with our team. So I just wanted to point that little dream team part out that resonated with me.
See, I'm good about keeping myself muted too. And absolutely, Caesar, it was fun to read that. And I remember that there was a dream team Olympic U.S. basketball team that just failed miserably. Though they were the best athletes in their positions, man, top of the game, that ability to come together wound up being a challenge. Client, I see your mic's hot. You got something to add? And then Don Hobbs.
Before that, Coach, I remember that clearly because that was Argentina that beat the Team USA, and so it's ingrained in my mind.
Awesome.
So, I'm taken by in 41 where it says a comprehensive list of attributes might look different for a business person, an athlete, a surgeon, a comedian. So what this kind of tells me is there is no wrong or right. Am I correct in that? There's no right attribute. There's no wrong attribute. They're just different levels of certain attributes that kind of get into the mix. And when you need one, you kind of nudge that one higher. And when you don't need another one, you kind of take that one down. That's what it sounds like to me. You guys tell me if I'm heading the right direction. What do y'all
I
think?
wish to add an overlay, because right and wrong is judgment. So you're absolutely right in that not right or not wrong. My question always is, how is it serving you? So let's take the discipline one. For those not building that attribute and working on following the scheduling and calendaring model we teach, and even after they get it built, then working on improving, following it on a daily basis, how's that working out for you? I'm not giving judgment or good or bad. I'm asking a question, is it getting you to your goal? Because if not, then we got to put in some effort. We got to put in some education. We got to get in some environments that support improving that. Now, here's the fun part for all of you. This discipline one, I've got 24 people that have the discipline to be showing up in this room, the discipline to be listening, and the discipline to be sticking. And that's going to make a huge difference in your world. You keep doing this going forward.
I just want to say one thing, and I just put this in the chat. Attributes and skills are meant to serve us. We are supposed to be their masters. That just hit me. We are to be their masters. They are meant to, as Coach Dress just said, serve us.
That's a great takeaway and a great way to wrap up this half hour. So appreciate you guys being here.
Wow,
Hey,
it's 30
guys,
minutes already? Oh,
it's
God.
right up against it. It is 10:30 and it's Wired Wednesdays, guys. For many of you, the second cornerstone, the discipline of a database, of using your KV core at a high level. You could use 1 to 2 o'clock Central today with Maria to crank on that piece and get it going. So by all means, make that happen and show up. If you've got work on your database too and you want some help, you got an hour with an expert. And many times you're the only one in there with her. So take advantage of that. And then again, 2 to 5 today, back in this room, conversation time. Monday, I was all alone. Yesterday, we had about a half dozen of us ultimately showing up and working on the job of conversations. That's what we get paid to do. Have the discipline to show up and lean into the environment that's helping you do it.